Hey folks, this is Zach, and welcome to the very first episode of the Reviewing the Realms podcast, a science fiction and fantasy literature podcast. Today's topic is going to be the book Kizumonogatari, or Wound Tale, by Nisiosin. However, before we begin, I believe that I should introduce myself a little bit more. I've been an avid reader for the majority of my life, and science fiction and fantasy has always kind of drawn me in. They're good escapes from the everyday world, but at the same time they can often teach us about our lives through the use of metaphor, simile, and other literary devices such as that. And that's what I really like about these genres. They give us a deep look into ourselves that we may not be able to do simply by looking at ourselves in a mirror. I'm really excited to get started. So, Kizumonogatari, or Wound Tale, is a Japanese light novel. Light novels are something that we'll be covering quite a bit on this podcast because I think that they're starting to get the respect that they deserve over here, or popularity at the very least, but they may not necessarily be known to a wide public quite yet. So, light novels are novels from Japan that are generally first published in magazine anthologies, and then later on, bound volumes are released. This particular work ran in one of two anthologies. I wasn't really able to determine which one it ran in. It was either ran in a anthology called Mephisto or Pandora, and these are both published by the company Kodansha, which is best known in the States for releasing manga. They actually have a publishing deal, or they did, with Del Rey to release their manga over here in the United States. But this particular release was handled by a company called Vertical Inc., and they did a really nice job with it. Vertical has been one of my favorite publishers for manga for a long time because they have really high quality releases, and I haven't really picked up any of their novels before this, and they did a really nice job. So the book is paperback, which I kind of have a love-hate relationship with paperback books, but they made the spine and the binding a little bit thicker, which makes it more durable than other paperback books like you would pick up if you were just walking down the science fiction and fantasy aisle, those cheap like $7 ones. These ones tend to run about $15 or so if you buy them in a brick and mortar store. Despite the fact that it's a paperback, it still kind of has that dust jacket feel, because the front and back covers flip out to have little flaps that contain information that would generally be on a dust cover jacket. So the front cover gives a summary of the book, and the back cover gives author information. Light novels, especially the ones that are released over in the United States, are generally known for having a lot of artwork inside of them, but this book does not have that same amount of artwork. The artwork is generally just regulated to the front cover. There's a title page that is made out of heavier stock and is printed in color, and on the back side there's a image there, and then there is a black and white image right before the first chapter begins. All of these pieces of artwork are done by a guy named Vofan, and they have an anime aesthetic to them, which I appreciate because I'm a fan. But so I mentioned that Vertical made these books a little bit higher quality in terms of the bindings, but the pages are also nice and heavy as well. So this will hold up to multiple readings. And I should also mention that I got this in a box set called the Monogatari Series Season 1, and it contains 7 books. So I will be looking at all 7 of them at some point. The book has artwork on it also by Vofan, which makes it a really nice display piece. And inside of the box, in addition to the 7 books, of which Kizumonogatari is one, there's also a postcard, and that postcard has the same artwork as the box, so this is also a nice display piece or something that you could just hold on to. So nice little extra in there. So now that we talked about the physical properties of the book, I thought we could talk about the story a little bit, because that's probably what you would like to hear. So our main character is a guy named Koyomi Araragi, and he's a disaffected high school student. He doesn't want to have friends because he feels that it will lower his intensity as a human. This is not an uncommon stereotype in Japanese pop culture, but it has its charms at times. However, his life starts to take a turn once he meets a girl named Tsubasa Hanekawa, and she's like the model student. She's the head of the student council. She gets really good grades. Pretty much the exact opposite of Koyomi. But they have this conversation and they start to get to know each other. And at the end of the conversation, the talk turns to a rumor that Tsubasa heard, where there's a monster that lives in their town. Kiyomi doesn't really believe this, but it kind of plants a seed in his head that he can't really get rid of. And one night, when he was walking home, it turns out the rumor was true. There's a vampire who is living in his town, but this vampire doesn't look good. All 4 of its limbs are completely gone, and it's going to die unless Koyomi gives it his blood. And he does this sacrifice, and he ends up becoming a vampire himself. So his new vampire sire asks him to retrieve the dismembered limbs so that it could return to its original form. Because you see, the form of a little girl doesn't really suit the vampire. So, narratively speaking, there's nothing really groundbreaking in this work. A lot of it is tropes that you would find in manga or anime. However, I still really liked it. Koyomi and Tsubasa are both really funny when they're interacting with each other or with the other characters around, and their dialogue with each other is cute, but also at times really touching and heart-moving. And also the quest for the vampire parts doesn't necessarily go as expected, and it just adds a whole bunch of charm to this. I will say that the translation for this particular book is done really, really well. Sometimes when things are being translated from Japanese to English, and especially in prose, there's a lot of stiff and awkward language that gets used or thrown around, or things aren't necessarily phrased in a way that you would commonly see in English. Not that it's like grammatically incorrect, it seems a little strange. And there are a few places in the book where that happens, but for the most part, the translation is really smooth and really well done, and it made the reading experience really enjoyable. And I will also say that I did say that this has some humor in it, but some of the jokes are a little on the raunchy side of things, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for anybody who's under the age of like 14 or so, but 100% highly recommend this book. And yeah, so I would welcome your thoughts. You can reach me at reviewingtherealms@gmail.com, or you can hit me up on Twitter, which I believe the handle is Realms Reviewing. You can also follow our Instagram page under Reviewing the Realms. Up there, I will post a picture of the cover or some sort of image that will tell you what the book is going to be for the following week. And yeah, podcast should come out on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. So I'm Zach, and I'm signing off from Reviewing the Realm.